Hey, speaking of Rand Paul, you may remember earlier this week that Rand Paul made headlines when he said that serious mental disorders can be the result of vaccination. Rand Paul, it has now been uncovered, belonged to a fringe medical group that actually denied that HIV caused AIDS. And we got a bunch of email after covering the Rand Paul story, people saying, David, you're ridiculing a doctor's opinion about vaccines. That's ridiculous. Let me remind everybody, just being a doctor doesn't mean that you are the unbiased arbiter of all issues, political, science, and medical. Ben Carson is a great example, Lewis, of someone who is a doctor, but is absolutely out there when it comes to views on so many things. And as has now been uncovered, as Dr. Rand Paul in the past has been a part of some groups that are really quite questionable. For 2 decades, as recently as 2010, Senator Rand Paul was a member of a fringe medical group created in response to the American Medical Association. Among the group's beliefs, and I'll tell you what group it is, at least during the time that Rand Paul was a member, are that HIV may not actually cause AIDS, period, that vaccines cause autism, which has been widely debunked, and women who have abortions are at higher risk for breast cancer. All three of these medical claims run contrary to settled medical science, but the group, which is the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, claims that there is no such thing as settled medical science on these issues. If you go back and look at what the AAPS was even founded for back in the 1940s, that will give you a very good idea of what this is all about. They were created to, quote, fight socialized medicine and to fight the government takeover of medicine. This is one of those groups, Lewis, a front group to prevent that evil communist takeover of healthcare.
Incredible. Even if you think that Rand Paul is brilliant, a brilliant doctor, a brilliant politician, and a good person, it's still not logical to take just his opinion over what the majority of doctors believe is the right thing to do with vaccines.
Of course.
Yeah, and so you know what? Just go with the majority. Go with what the majority of experts say on any given issue.
To give you a little more of the flavor of what the AAPS believes, there was a 2010 article in the Kentucky Courier Journal which revealed that the AAPS suggested President Obama won the 2008 election by hypnotizing audiences, and that in 2003 they published a report claiming that the World Trade Center's Twin Towers here in New York City fell in the terror attacks because the government stopped using asbestos. Now, BuzzFeed has reported that an advisor to Senator Paul said he didn't know if Paul was still a member of the group, but that he joined because it was a group of pro-life doctors and that he doesn't endorse all of the group's views. It is, being a doctor does not supersede the logic of individual positions. And it just so happens that when Rand Paul said that vaccines he's heard of, which, by the way, since when do we do science based on what Rand Paul heard of? But Rand Paul heard of vaccines causing serious mental disorders. Just because he's a doctor doesn't mean it's true.
Do you think that that this stance is going to help him in the election?
Well, the whole vaccine thing, shockingly, is becoming a little bit of a litmus test among the Republican potential primary candidates. And I actually don't think that Rand Paul is even remotely a viable presidential candidate. Chris Christie is the other guy who has been making some kind of claims, I guess, about vaccines that he had to clarify. I think Chris Christie has absolutely no shot whatsoever at being the Republican nominee, but that's at least 2 potential would-be candidates who have had to clarify. And now the vaccine thing is becoming a bit of a litmus test. Which Republicans believe in vaccination? It's fascinating.
I couldn't really tell you. I mean, who are we left with now as viable candidates in the Republican primary?
I think Jeb Bush believes in vaccination.
Well, I guess that's a good thing. As we've said before, if it has to be a Republican, he's probably not the worst one.